Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dhruv Behel, a director with the Exhibitions India Group. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you in person to the 28th Convergence India and 6th Smart Cities India Expo. While digital communication has been our lifeline this past year, this year has also taught us the tremendous value of in-person and face-to-face interaction. So I thank you all once again for being here this morning. I'd also like to thank you for adhering to all the safety guidelines, keeping your masks on, maintaining social distancing norms, and regularly sanitizing your hands. I'd like to thank KPMG, our knowledge partners, for their inputs, their collaboration, and their insights. Thank you to Puneet Narang, partner Major Project Advisory and Urban Transformation Infrastructure, for moderating this session. I'd like to thank in advance Shri Satyendra Jain, Minister for Health and Family Welfare, Industries, Home, Public Works Department, Power, Urban Development, and Transport, Government of NCT, who will join us shortly. I'd especially like to thank all our esteemed guests on the dais this morning. Dr. Renu Khosla, Director CURE, Center for Urban and Regional Excellence. Mr. Kunal Kumar, IAS Joint Secretary, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, who is also on his way and should join us very shortly. Shri P.K. Gupta, Chairman and Managing Director, NBCC, and Shri Rajiv Talwar, CEO, DLF. And last, but certainly not least, a very special thanks to Shri Rajesh Agarwal, IAS Executive Director, India Trade Promotion Organization. Sir, under your leadership, we are in a position this morning to inaugurate not only the first big B2B Expo in over a year, but also the first Expo at this state-of-the-art facility, the newly developed International Exhibition cum Convention Center here at ITPO. It's been a Herculean task, especially taking into account the special challenges faced over the past year, but thanks to your determination and support, we're able to inaugurate this Expo today. The Exhibitions India Group has been hosting leading international expos at Pragati Maidan since 1992. This is the 28th edition of Convergence India and 6th edition of the Smart Cities India Expo. We've missed only one edition of Convergence in the past 29 years, and that was in 2020 due to the pandemic. It was my father's dream to see Pragati Maidan develop into a facility of this scale and quality, and I'd like to dedicate this opening to his memory, his vision, and his pioneering spirit. Once again, I'd like to thank all our supporters, participants, sponsors, and well-wishers, without whom we wouldn't have been able to withstand the impact of COVID and emerge even stronger from this past year. The nationwide lockdown came into effect exactly a year ago today, and the role of technology and smart cities in tackling the COVID-19 pandemic cannot be overstated. Integrated command and control centers in smart cities across the nation went on to become nerve centers and COVID-19 war rooms in order to identify containment zones, perform contact tracing, and at the same time, ensure that essential services remain operational. Of course, all of this is only made possible by the communications infrastructure that is so vital for our everyday lives. In its 28th year, Convergence India remains at the forefront of India's digital revolution, while the Smart Cities India Expo, in its 6th edition, reflects India's emerging modernization and development landscape. The aim of this Expo is to support both the Digital India and Smart Cities India missions. The idea is to demonstrate that we can network in person in a safe manner in this new normal. There's an incredible amount of diversity and action on the show floor, and I encourage you to spend some time exploring the exhibits. We also have an extremely engaging, high-level, 3-day conference program, which includes live conferences as well as virtual sessions and a virtual expo platform for our international exhibitors. In fact, we have 4 conference sessions running in parallel, 2 live sessions and 2 virtual. We also have all of these sessions being streamed live on our social media platforms and our virtual expo platform. Lastly, we have a virtual expo zone on the exhibition floor from where delegates and visitors can view the virtual sessions as well. We owe it to the next generation to grow responsibly, and we believe that a digital India will also be a smart and sustainable India. It's the need of the hour for us to come together to learn, grow, adapt, and innovate. Expos like ours bring people together to exchange ideas and collaborate for a better tomorrow. I'd like to thank you again for being here today, and I wish you all the very best for the next 3 days. I'd now like to hand over the session to Puneet Narang from KPMG. Thank you, Puneet.
Thank you so much. Am I audible? Can you hear me? Yes, excellent. Are you going to be playing that? A very good morning, everyone. My name is Puneet Narang. Thank you so much, Dhruv and Exhibitions India, for getting us back up on this platform. It's so good, after a year of such extraordinary upheaval that you've seen, that we are, human beings are meant to interact, are meant to sit and talk with each other and interact, and here we are maintaining our 6 feet ki duri and present here in person. So let me, get started. It was about 22 or 23 years back that I was in the same space here in Pragati Maidan. I remember as an architecture student in my internship or something, setting up and, putting up these stalls and designing them. And in the last 23 years, life's gone a full circle for me. I've lived, in many cities, starting from Delhi, Detroit, Chicago, last 6-7 years in Mumbai, and then the last 6 again back in NCR. I think what stands out for me is when they say that cities shape you. We do start defining our cities, but they shape you also. So I do feel that each one of us is a result of those interactions that happen with us, apart from our families, in the communities and the settlements that we live in. That's why this session to me is extremely special. And also, as my fellow speakers, as the moderator of this session, I think there are a few things which will stand out, which I will touch upon. I know we are waiting for the JS, Mr. Kunal Kumar, as well as the CMD NBCC. But nonetheless, I have a very heavyweight and illustrious panel right next to me. Smart Cities mission, if you were to look back,
I think, the earlier
it is quite different from the prior urban development programs, as it covers outcomes such as livability, sustainability, and economic ability. It's not just about creating assets, but what do citizens, what do people experience when the city is built over a period of time. In that sense, its focus is on the citizens. It also leverages the synergies with other concurrent development programs, both from central as well as state governments, notably the Amrut, Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, and the Swachh Bharat Mission. Coming back to me, why this session is so special, I have 3 reasons why I think so. I think first is that the multiple perspectives that we will get on this session. While we will hear, as we wait for the Joint Secretary from the champion himself, who has been the general anchoring this entire mission for the last 5-6 years, it's almost become like a revolution. I know in the last years there have been some development challenges, but there is a wave that's taking on. And if you go to the cities, you look at the inclusive programs, you do see these projects making a big difference. And, Dhruv touched upon it also, how these command control centers were used as war rooms during the COVID periods, or for tracking and tracing COVID cases. We'll also have, Mr. P.K. Gupta, the CMD NBCC, which covers the core execution side. And as the economy is on an upswing right now, we are coming out, luckily, of the last 1 year of downturn. I think the focus will be on implementation. So that's a different perspective altogether. Then I have on my left Dr. Renu Khosla, Director, Center for Urban and Regional Excellence. She works with the urban informal and the low-income communities that integrates people in the process of city development. This will be so important because we cannot have integrated comprehensive development if we don't take into account that section of our society. We may have our posh residences, but what happens in the slums, what happens for the service class that's coming to work in our houses and our offices, how do we incorporate them and build them into the entire planning process is important. Then we have a very big industry captain in Shri Rajiv Talwarji, none other than DLF, and that's one name that doesn't need any introduction at all in terms of what they've done across our NCR region, having set many standards, created buildings, assets, habitats, which are currently lighthouses and beacons of how and what our country can do in terms of its real estate development. So there'll be that perspective. I also have with me Mr. Agarwal, the ED ITPO, who is the boss of this place where we are sitting. So he himself has seen, while Pragati Maidan is going through a change himself, he's captaining that initiative, but a lot of economic activity, a lot of trade, a lot of exhibition happens here, and he gets to interface with all of them. I was in fact here yesterday walking, and this place was a war zone. I mean, all of us are here, but looking at all the workers that were here, the jobs that were being created, I think that's something, Mr. Agarwal, we would be keen to hear from you on also. So that's just to give you a a view on who the fellow panelists are. While this gives you a multiple lens and a perspective, I will open this up, and ask my fellow panelists to touch upon 3 or 4 themes. One of them will be around people, which is core, and people across the cross-section of our society. Second will be on implementation, outcomes, not just the program metrics, but on the ground, how have things changed? What are some of the execution challenges? What are some of the implementation challenges? I would like them to touch upon that. I would allow and want my fellow speakers to spend at least 3 to 4 minutes just with their opening remarks. And then I would get into a few more conversations and questions if they allow me. And if we are lucky, we will also be joined by the 2 missing members on the platform. And we've also got the Honorable Minister lined up, Shri Satyendra Jain, towards the end of the panel. So with that, let me invite Dr. Renu Khosla first to share her opening remarks. Ma'am, over to you, please.
Thank you. Cities, as you said, are about people. I think cities are about us. Cities are us, and we live in them, and they have to be built to our needs and our requirements. And so, smart cities must be about us too. What is a smart city? I mean, if I kind of imagine what the word cities implies, I would say the C in cities stands for communities, for collectives, for co-creation of solutions, for implementing solutions in partnership with people. But then cities have an I in it. It represents the informality that exists in cities. 9 out of 10 people live work informally. 1 in 4 lives in an informal settlement. So they don't have access to the kind of services that the rest of the formal city has. They cannot benefit, they cannot access benefits. And during the early days of lockdown, we saw the migrants walking back, and that was because they could not access the benefits that the government was offering them. But then cities, and smart cities in particular, must include these people because they too have a right to the city. They work for the city, they build our cities. They are the ones who power and drive our machines and our transports, and all the infrastructure is built by them. So we need to integrate them. We need to make them an integral part of the development process. And technology, smart cities is about technology, then technology has to be used in a way that it can bring the urban informal people into the core of the city. They have to be smart. Technology has to be used to identify their locations, to de-engineer solutions, to decentralize, to contextualize and localize some of the solutions. But smart technology is also required to equalize, to make sure that we are able to deliver an equal level of services. So I would say in the end that smart cities have to be about empathy. They have to believe that the urban, poor and informal people are an integral component and have the right to the city. And therefore a smart city needs to reimagine the way development is going to happen if it wants to be resilient, if it wants to be sustainable, and if it wants to be regenerative post-COVID.
Thank you so much, Dr. Khosla. So I think it needs to be smart in a manner whereby, while talking about integrating technology, the people across the cross-section, and especially the informal sector, needs to become a part of the planning and execution. Let me go to Mr. Talwar, to you, and hear from you on what you from a DLF perspective, from a marquee real estate developer perspective, the broader pioneering work that you've done, and how you're seeing the smart cities mission pan out. What are your views, sir?
Yeah, I'll just take a minute to pay homage to a very big person. That was Mr. Prem Behel, and the fact that he was a very rightful partner of ITPO for a number of years, 28 years in that. His wife Anita, who's been with him all throughout, and they've passed on the baton in most to Dhruv and Chandrika, who are doing a great job today. The next part would be just to congratulate Mr. L.C. Goyal, who's the chairman of ITPO, and Rajesh Agrawalji, who's the executive director, who's actually running the show. We're doing this show this year in the new hall, and you can see that it's a very comfortable hall, well air-conditioned, good height, excellent place on a global scale for exhibitions and hopefully conventions. With that over, one would like to begin with the fact that India is a smart country. The way we've handled the pandemic shows for itself. I met the deputy chief of the Italian embassy, who said with a 60 million population, they were having as many cases as India has today. And that, as you know, whether it's the US, whether it's unknown in China, but in many other countries around the world, many smaller populations have faced a much bigger challenge in tackling the pandemic, and India's found some very smart ways through it. Sacrificing personal liberty, yes, playing a great role at, being a part of the society which is containing this pandemic, working with the government, and not only the vaccines, but there is a session going on, I think, with the TRI chairman, and you'd be surprised to know that his predecessor, who had earlier worked in the beginning of Aadhaar also, is the person who's drawn up the program for the vaccination. It's an outstanding program, as we all know, And today it's been opened up for more than 45-year-olds. It's an outstanding program which leads you onto Aadhaar, gives you a certificate of your vaccination right in the beginning. And that's the kind of people that we have. So giving their rightful due, one would start by saying that we do have smart citizens, not only nationally for what they've done, but internationally. Is the bane of every country around the world that how many Indians have done so exceedingly well internationally, most of all in the most competitive market, which is the US. Now we come to our own challenge here for smart cities. 50% of India is supposed to be living in cities by the middle of this century. 50% means 650 million today. And if it becomes anywhere 60%, that is about 780 million. And 780 million is 10% or more than 10% of the global population. So I think what you're doing today, what you're taking a part in today, and all of us here together have to see a very, very big challenge. That challenge cannot be met by resources of the government. It is just not possible for government to tax people so much that they can have enough resources at their command. Even this, as we were told by Mr. Agrawal and Rajesh, that even the redesigning, redevelopment of ITPO has been done not only by their own resources, but by borrowing money from the market. So it's a very new paradigm which is coming, and I would only like to remind you of the change in economic paradigm which the Prime Minister effected in his speech on the 15th of August 2019. All of us have grown up hearing one slogan in India which continued for almost 45 to 50 years, which was Garibi Hatao. How much of poverty was removed? Great strides taken, I'm sure. But the Prime Minister changed the entire perspective of people around the world and in India when he said, we would like to make a US $5 trillion economy. What he was setting the new economic thinking was that India has to become a leading economy in the first 3 economies of the world. Our GDP should aim for 15 to 20 trillion in the next 10 to 20 years, not just 5 trillion. Because that is what will energize the market. That is what will lead to smart financing, and that is what will lead to smart cities being made in India. In fact, I do know for a fact that Mr. Kunal Kumar, who is the Joint Secretary in the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, is right now leading a study on how to plan 8 smart cities with an outlay by the government of only 8,000 crores. Thanks to Kunal, who's just joining us, I'm sure, I've had to spend about an hour and a half with Manish Cheda. Yes, and this is the kind of thinking which is going on. It's not only the ITPO, it's not only the Central Vista, it's not only the Prime Minister's Awas Yojana, it's not only something which may have escaped your attention, that in Uttar Pradesh, where we wanted a clean Ganga, and we've all been talking of Melli Yamuna case also in the city of Delhi, you cannot get a clean river till you treat a river as the drain of the last resort. Everything comes in from every STP, and untreated sewage also comes into a river. How can you ever make it clean? There is a program going on led by the Prime Minister which says that the entire waste, chemical waste, factory waste, manufacturing waste, municipal waste, name anything, any waste will get treated in Uttar Pradesh on land itself. And therefore the water of the Ganga will remain clean. So there is a lot of smart thinking going on in this country at this very moment. Given a chance to excel, I'm sure the coming generations will have a much, much better time and a much better future in India. As Renuji said, we need to think of empathy. It's a word very dear to me. People's empathy in the private sector really began by providing housing for all of us. What the government could do, did it. What the private sector could do, did it. Unfortunately, over a period of time, there were people who were so smart that they actually ended up not delivering back to people. Some of us stood out, yes, not because of any of us, but I think a full family lineage of 3 generations, 74 to 75 years of development, and over a period of time. Why am I mentioning this period of time? Because it's very essential to take note in what Kunal is planning, that city development, more so smart city development, will take time. It's not something that you can wish and it will happen in the next 5 or 10 years. It takes you a good 2 to 3 decades to make a city like that. Fortunately, Indians are contributing very well when it comes to IT, when it comes to telecom, when it comes to banking, digital banking, and they're adapting themselves so well that we have a hope of delivering a much better future, not only in cities to people, but if we have empathy for them, as Renuji said, to people living in the rural areas and people who will come to live in the cities. I think it's a very gigantic problem. Just to mention a few things. Infrastructure. You know, India has a woeful shortage of infrastructure. You do have ministers like Mr. Gadkari who are doing a marvelous job in making highways. You do have airports led by Mr. Hardeep Puri which are being privatized. You do have a mission by Mr. Hardeep Puri which says 1 crore 12 lakh houses of 300 square feet. That is the kind of housing which we need, will be delivered within this year. And by 2022, when the Prime Minister's first hurdle of 2022 is met. Whether it is infrastructure, whether it is housing, commercial development, which commercial and housing development in cities is being done so ably by NBCC. It's to be seen around Delhi and I'm sure in other places where lighthouse projects are being undertaken. It also means planning for manufacturing, services, technology inputs, leisure, transport, logistics, retail, water, electricity, sewage, drainage, art and culture, sports, and then green spaces. And that gets us to the biggest challenge which the future generations will face in India, which will be environment. While STPs will deal with it one way, your transport systems like the metro and electric systems will deal with another challenge, but you will also have water and electricity. Why is there a time in India where people can stop development? In fact, Rajesh was telling that on this side of the table, he deals very often with the red tape on the other side of the table. That why does the red tape and why do many environmentalists tell in India that sorry, a city does not have carrying capacity? Do we have a responsibility only to the well-off and the rich? We have a greater responsibility for every Indian to get water and electricity to their satisfaction. You know that that has been one of the best selling points and USPs of the Aam Aadmi Party government in Delhi. Water and electricity have changed the voting pattern of this city. To get 67 seats out of 70 and 63 out of 70 the next time is something which is amazing. In which political party in a democratic election can you get that? And it was brought in only by that change in electricity and water. And look what a beneficial impact it has had on education systems. That young lady Atishi, what a job she's done with government schools. So you do have lots of smart Indians contributing in their own way in the making of smart cities. And we just hope that young Kunal and young Rajesh will be the 4 flag bearers of a smart city. And there is a housing revolution which I want to come into the last. We have talked to the Minister for Urban Development that what we require is a housing revolution. That revolution will only have the tip of the iceberg, which will be contributed by developers like DLF, will be contributed by many other good developers around the country, but we will have to sift out the rogue developers. What you will really have to provide for is 5 to 6 crore homes to be grounded immediately in the next 5 years. If you've seen the migrant labor move out during the pandemic, I think each one of you and each one of us should ask, does anyone who had a pakka roof over their heads, did they become a part of the migrant outflow and exodus? It's a very major thing. It's a financial security, it's an emotional security, it's a family security to have a pakka house. And for many millennials, it is the ease of movement within India. They would like to move from one place to another, and therefore the next program which the Prime Minister and Mr. Hardeep Puri have hit upon is the rental housing policy. Everyone cannot afford to buy a house. We neither have the finance, we neither have the low rates of interest, and we neither have the means to buy houses. Therefore, in every city, and please let's try and make smart cities out of transport junctions, railway junctions, which are abundant in this country. You can see the net result in Delhi itself. If any and many of you belong to Delhi, please go and have a look at Panchkuiya Road. Railway kothis for the senior officers used to be there. They've been converted into 8 to 10 floor homes, flats, apartments. Every railway junction in this country has wasted enough space by making only a ground floor or ground plus one housing. In each one of those, land should be valued at zero. You cannot have a house of 300 square feet at 7 lakhs or 8 lakhs and 600 square feet at 12 to 15 lakhs if the land value is placed in thousands of rupees per square foot. Land value has to be zero, because when it was acquired under the British or Indian systems, there was absolutely no price paid to the people. Otherwise, you would have had people like Haryana, who are very rich, who don't want jobs, they want to do something which is entrepreneurial. So if your land is priced at zero, then let's make homes which are 8 to 10 stories high, because 4 does not allow you the benefits of technology, which is like even a basic thing like an elevator, which is what DDA has been making all throughout. We need to upturn the DDA model, make it 8 to 10 stories for the next 40 to 50 years at least. What you've seen in Panchkuiya Road, what you've seen totally in Marine Drive, those were the high income places. Today we can make 300 square foot homes, and you can make them by Maiwan technology and many other technologies. Over a period in Vietnam, they deliver a 10-storied building in 10 months, fitted out. Everything is fitted out on a modular model. You have toilets over there, you have to provide water and electricity, it can be done. This is what the smart cities will entail in future. I would request people like Mr. Gupta and Kunal and Rajesh and of course Renuji, because you deal with people as such, with environmentalists, that please contribute to making cities, but launch a program to make 5 to 6 crore homes for the poor and the new millennials. Planning a city and saying we will auction everything publicly will never get you homes for the poor. We need rental housing for the poor and for the millennials. We need ease of movement in the country. Therefore, the first program in a smart city program should be to provide at least 50,000 to 1 lakh homes of 300 square foot to 500 square feet. Because if you can accommodate the poor, then you can make an economy churn. Otherwise, the economy will go massively into NPAs, because people like to sell dreams, and very often while selling dreams, they sell their own dreams to themselves. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rajiv ji, for a very insightful and a passionate, coverage there. You touched upon, how the 750 million potentially, that number, which is, I mean, if by current estimates, a third of our country lives in the urban settlement, then by 2030, a 60 crore number is what we are currently looking at. These are imperatives which, if unaddressed, can also become significant challenges and issues. But by what our Honorable Prime Minister and his team of leaders have given this vision of the 5 trillion economy, of turning it around and making it inclusive, what Dr. Renu Khosla was also talking about. Those are very, very critical elements. You also touched upon housing for all and your demand and the need for rental housing and proper policies around that. I think there the other mission that Dr. Abhijat runs would also be important to consult upon there. One thing that you hinted upon is the potential that exists at our transport nodes. It befuddles me when I look at how our cities over years have developed, and we've had it probably reverse. It's got to be transport-oriented development, but we've had development happening first, whether real estate or commercial, and then the need to, and the problem to move large amounts of people around, and then start thinking about transit. So it's been reversed. We need to rectify that. It's with some of these points. Let me invite Shri Kunal Kumar ji. Thank you so much, sir. I think we touched upon, this is cities for people, and I think if there's one thing the Smart Cities program is directed towards citizens, towards inclusivity. We do have all these challenges around mobility, around resilient cities. You've been championing this entire revolution, if I may call it that. How do you see this moving forward? What are some of the lessons learned? Over to you, sir. This mic is working also. Feel free, sir, as you wish.
I would only like to say that never mention a figure like 60 crore because it sounds very small.
Okay.
Please mention a figure like 650 million.
Okay.
I mean, that looks a big figure.
Yeah, 135 crore, 60 crore, but yeah, that number, the impact. Absolutely. Sure. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Very good afternoon to everyone here. Thanks to the organizers for having invited me here. I think it's very important that when we are in the business of creating smart cities and developing and retrofitting cities, we have a participative, all-encompassing approach, which is what you see in these kinds of organizations that happen, the expo that is going on. It's almost like a microcosm of a small city. The two most important things that have been associated with cities from their birth, number one is trash, waste, and number two is markets. And I could see plenty of them around outside. These are not markets, will look like markets, but there was some trash around also. So it looks like a good city out here. And it's good to be in a city talking about cities. And no matter how much we talk about cities, it's never going to be enough. It's very important that we talk about these things and develop our own ways of looking at things, because mostly from what I understand, the literature around urban and city building has largely come from weird countries, which is WEIRD, which is Western, educated, industrialized, rich and democratic. And 96% of urban development that we read about, talk about, has come from these countries, primarily in the West. Not much exists about how countries in Africa need to undertake this entire process of urbanization, or South Asia, or India. And therefore, it's important that in these get-togethers that we have, and beyond these get-togethers in our research institutions, in our practice, we developed immense knowledge, and this knowledge is not about theoretical knowledge, because this is more about learning by doing. So we develop this knowledge through practice, and then also codify it in ways that can be exchanged with a lot of people. So in that context, this is a very important event. I think the first time I heard of this word called smart cities, and when I reflect, is sometime in the early 2000s. And the word actually came out of the technology industry. I think the first proponent of this was IBM, if I'm not wrong. It was never a government which talked about smart cities to begin with. And then suddenly, I think the big landmark moment came in 2008 when the global financial crisis happened, when all the technology giants felt that the private sector could go bust one fine night, but governments are here to stay, so why not pitch the smart cities bandwagon to the government? And I think that is how it actually entered the government as a philosophy, as a point of action. But nevertheless, certain things have origins which are different, but they later take on a life which is completely different and life of their own. And I think this entire thing about smart cities and the movement and the philosophy around it has taken a completely new life of its own across the world. You go to different countries, they're talking about how is Brazil developing its smart cities. If you go to Germany, they're talking about how Germany is developing its smart cities, how is Indonesia developing its smart cities. And they may be calling it by different names. Some are calling it smart cities, some are calling it future cities, some are calling it something else. But essentially, they're talking the same thing. And that is where, when I start to look at in the Indian context, it becomes very difficult to comprehend what a smart city and what are we trying to do. Because very amorphous. Only today morning when I had gone with my parents to the vaccination center to get them vaccinated for COVID, a couple of people were just starting to talk to me and they were asking me, what is smart cities? And do you think India has any smart cities? Do you think India will ever have some smart cities? But tell me one thing, okay, you talk about smart cities. Which are the smart cities at the moment? Is there any smart city in the country? So there's a lot of eagerness to talk about it, but one can clearly make out the amorphous nature of this talk. And it is bound to be. Because honestly, we will go searching for something which doesn't exist, we'll never find it, and there is no definition of a smart city. We'll never find that definition, which will be something like a definition of what is an atom, or what is a molecule, or what is a computer. Those are very standard definitions, but you'll never find that kind of a standard definition for smart cities. You go to the fringes of a city, a person may say that if I get water, the day I get water, I'll feel that I'm living in a smart city. If you go to a place which is near a landfill site, people will say the day I get rid of this and this entire thing gets converted into a beautiful garden, I will feel I live in a smart city. If your children are going to school, the day they can go safely to school and can access good quality education, you will feel that you are living in a smart city. So everyone has a different dimension of how you relate to this word. But if you go to the Western countries, and the more I travel towards that side of the world, I find the definition is getting fairly standardized, which is a one-liner which says, smart cities are cities which use technology to improve lives. This is pretty much the definition in a country like Holland, or maybe France, or maybe a UK, or maybe a US. And that standardization has happened because of their historic path to where they are in their urban context. In our case, we have to accept this amorphous nature where multi-layered definitions are going to be there. One layer of society will ask for basic water, sanitation, and housing. There'll be another layer who will ask for better jobs, better economy, better investment climate, robust economic growth. There'll be another layer which will talk of productivity gains, innovation, technology, data, and everything. So all of that combines together in what we call smart cities in our country. And therefore, it is an even more bigger challenge. And come back to my original point that literature of this kind doesn't exist. You take book after book after book which has been written on smart cities, it will mention the same thing, which is about using technology to improve cities. But that's not the game that we are here to play. In our country, technology, to sum up, is an important means, but definitely not the only means in a bouquet of means which includes policy, which includes infrastructure, which includes regulations, which includes data, innovation, includes so many different things to come together to make this whole look beautiful, which is the smart city. And we have tried to measure it also through many ways, and these are never going to be successful. I mean, everyone have different take on it. The ease of living index, whether we call the climate smart cities benchmarking, or we call it, now we are getting into measuring GDP for cities, and next year we have promised the government that we'll come out for the first 100 GDP measures for the top 100 cities. Please, we're talking about GDP of the city, GDP of the state, what about GDP of the city? All the indices, so all the indices that are created are essentially to kind of measure what goes. They try to bring standardized price, so not standardized, but get visibility of what's happening in the law, so they can engage in these are what. So once you define foundational principles of a city, which become a smart city, it has to be collective, it has to be a process of observation, where everyone feels involved, everyone is taken care of, and that cannot be measured by the index, because when you come out of your house in the morning, you will not the city. If you get to Praha feeling, you will be living in the smart city. If you get out in the city, if you again, the city will not stay the same time, then we are not living in the smart city. That's how people will get awareness. No matter what you measure, say, nevertheless, measure principles, which is a proxy, some of those things, which is where we are headed. So, our entire effort is now to try to move to account the way to things that people know on the ground, so that we understand what is it that people want in our cities, which is where we are. Now, a lot of people are discounted also. Some people say, very basic, they took a lot. And these are talks, by the way, if you understood the history of the talks of how city were not have been talking about these very simply. First, like what you gave to the first one of you becoming smart about the ways these developed, one fine day, one of the journalists was trying to really saying for anybody that wants to say something to us, it's smart. I think the mission basically to allow change in good city beautiful. And that is the point that we have to understand, that every city has gone through this journey the world over. Cities have basically seen three phases. First is the people phase. There has to be a reason why they are in a particular place. We may have our own thinking about it, that इतने लोग क्यों हैं यहाँ पे, मुंबई में 2 करोड़ लोग क्यों हैं, दिल्ली में 1 करोड़ लोग क्यों हैं, but it's a reason. It's a very, very amorphous, undecipherable reason. Everyone has a different reason. Somebody has come here for education. I am a migrant. I have come here to work. Somebody has come here to do business. Somebody has come here for education. Somebody has come here to make a different thing altogether. But they're coming here because the opportunity exists. The first phase of a is this opportunity. Second is this production phase, where all the people coming in and organizations coming in then get you revenues, the city infrastructure. When more industries come in, when organizations do set in, you get tax revenues. You can then use that to set the city's infrastructure. And infrastructure plays a dual role, where you start to get jobs created because of this infrastructure creation, as Mr. Talwar was talking about. Housing creates jobs and so many different things. Of course, he was talking of much more than that. I'll come to it. But and the second thing is that when infrastructure gets created, it invites more industries to come in. So almost like a virtuous cycle sets in, where infrastructure leads to industries, industries get tax revenue, which get to infrastructure, and so on. This cycle then moves you to the third level, which is the productivity level. So from people to production to productivity, and those cities will actually able to make the third level go on to become the great cities of the world, the names that we all talk about. Now, we are at various stages of our this three-level cycle in different cities of our country, and probably most of our cities are either in the people phase or the production phase, and are yet to move into the productivity phase, while some parts of our cities are in the let's say Bangalore, some part of Bangalore is in the people phase, some part of it is in the production phase, some part of it is already in the productivity phase. Now, how do we move the entire Bangalore towards the productivity phase is our next frontier, because clearly in a Bangalore, if you see the number of hours, 60 crore, I was reading some report, IIT Delhi report, 60 crore hours of work is lost because of traffic congestion. So if that is fixed, then that production then leads to further production, and then it leads to the productivity. Fixing all those. And so smart cities basically are a journey, a place, a time or venue where we can say we have arrived and this is smart. And any city in the world, if you talk to a New Yorker, you talk to a Londoner, you talk to a Parisian, you talk to anyone in the world, they will never call their city the smartest city in the country. Every city has a problem. 1850, it was when George Haussmann was fixing Paris, because Napoleon got him from UK at double the price of any French architect to make Paris. And from then on, Paris has been Paris, but for the last 5 years, when it has two of the biggest floods in its history have happened in Paris, so it has to reinvent itself again. And by the way, technology is playing a big role. A city at any moment of time seems to be a reflection of its technology. If Delhi is what it is because it is using a certain technology. If New York is a certain technology, how magic pass towards technology is what will take you smart cities. I am the mission director also. I should be doing justice to the mission by giving you some figures of where we have reached as far as the mission is concerned. It's a $30 billion investment which we planned over 5 to 7 years. We are now in the 5th year, 2 more years to go. So far, about $25 billion of tenders have been floated, and around $10 billion of work are actually being executed or have been completed on ground. And the work that is happening in the smart cities spent close to around every month. Around 100 smart cities to fix public spaces, to road infrastructure, to smart streets and things like that. Now, again, different cities will be doing it differently. You will be satisfied more with one, you may hate the other, but it is in swimming, but you can't swim till you swim. And that's the fundamental nature. It is you have to make them to understand them. And so anyone who's tried to make something which is smart infrastructure understands the pain one has to go through it, and the kind of partnerships you have to go through, the kind of innovation you have to do, or jugaad, whatever you may call it, language you may believe. It's like learning music. It's not like learning guitar or learning to learn it. Therefore, it's important. Even failures become important in this scenario, because at least trying to do something. By the way, over the last 5 years, I've seen myself. I was a municipal commissioner when the mission was launched, and now 2.5 years in Delhi. I've seen how our cities had started to talk on technology and the language they use now. When we used to talk to city managers and city data officers, by the way, there was only one city in 2016 data officers, 67 of them, by the way, have a very rigorous course which we had created along with the Tata Trust, and have come out successfully passing that course. And now the language they talk now is much better than a language ICS will talk, or Infosys will talk, or maybe a Cisco or IBM will talk. And that evolution, to take 100 people to that evolution takes 4 years. Lakhs of people we need, and the kind of skills we will need to develop. And by the way, that cannot be developed in classrooms. As I said, it has to come by swimming. It has to come by playing music. It has to come by playing tennis. It is smart cities. And that's where we are headed. So I think we have to keep that in mind. Plus, I think now the crucial fact of life is there is a pre and post COVID. And I think we've seen the now entering the post, where global value chains are getting redefined. Global geopolitics is getting redefined. Funnily, my son, who is 9, after COVID, he said, now I realize what globalization is. I asked him, why didn't you realize before, and now how do you realize? He said, Papa, virus happened in China. Other things that you soon maybe the egg on your table, or maybe the pen you are using, or the laptop working on, also have other places, or evenings outside. Then he started to talk about this. So globalization, the way affects everything. I come to this venue, the way I'll talk to someone, see the things I'll see, how much our cities connect to this. Our cities have to drive the economic growth of our country forward. If we successfully develop 5 trillion, 10 trillion, 20 trillion economy, by the way, that's not difficult. And I think two important data points. One, 2018 to 55 years, dependency ratio is less than 1. Demographic transition, anywhere we dividend, when the number of people in the age group 15 to 64 is going to be greater than the number of people on either side of it, added together. Which means, and by the way, all countries around the world have seen their fastest economic growth periods when they have had this phase of demographic dividend. So there is some correlation there. It's not a causality, but the correlation does exist. The second is 30% urbanization. And by the way, that number is debatable. You talked about 3 crore or 600 million. There is a report on the World Development Line. If you look at that report, and they have used a different metric. Travel from the fringe. That fringe is not the boundary of the city. The agglomeration index, and by that index already 5% urban, which means India is close to 70 crore urban population already. And if you look at the way China and Mexico define their cities and urban, we are already 65% urban. So definitionally, we have chosen a very difficult. You know what the definition for urban in India is? A place with a minimum 5,000 population, which is 2,500 in Mexico or China, with 75% of the male population working in non-agricultural pursuits, and a density of 400 persons per square kilometer and above. If you meet all the three criteria, you are an urban place, which is where our country shows less figures on the urban scale, and most other countries have liberal definitions. Even the World Bank's agglomeration, World Bank was struggling. In development reforms, struggled how to compare countries. One index to compare everyone. One definition, 55%. So there's another core lever is when you reach 30% urbanization, beyond that, countries have seen correlated with high economic growth and express or accelerated urbanization going forward. Something happens at 30%. Even the definition happens at 30%, and something happens between that demographic dividend, which causes a country to see a couple of decades or more of high growth. And I said at Kennedy School, I was part of a project in Harvard when I was there, where the economic complexity is being developed in Hidalgo. MIT and Harvard are doing that together, and I was part of that study. And that study shows that in the next 10 years, 20 years in fact, in India, second, the 8 African countries.
And one is India, so these 8 countries, which is make the top 10, and which is where both countries, 70% of organization, 70% of GDP is injected to come from certain areas. Today it's around 60-65%. So now the census is making one of the most important documents to decide the most population forward. And so we will wait for that. I will not go to specifics of what we are doing so I don't want to do that. But I think one question all of you must be waiting for: what next? What is the next version of smart city? We have 100 city smart city. Now what is the version next? A lot of people ask me this question because you live in your life smartphone, they have iPhone, and this year we have iPhone 1, they have iPhone 2, iPhone 3. I think recently yesterday I read some paper from OnePlus 9. So what is smart cities do? Smart cities version. I think fundamentally what differs in technology, 1.4 so that is again the same thing that I talked about. It's a practice-driven thing. And therefore, smart cities are not products by these are not soups or books that you can online order online. These are not things that you can mention here in the Pragati Maidana. You go back to your city and it's not a switch off light, switch off light kind of thing that you can make smart cities. All of us are here for the long haul. I talked about the balance of cities we talked about. Talk about Japan. In 1850, different Japan under the Shoguns and the land in Japan. After that, you have the Meiji which transformed Japan into an industrial power because it was only the German industrialization model. Not second one. You know what was the biggest?
Like Second World War, the biggest recorded crime in Japan is stealing potatoes because people did not have food to eat. And from there on to become Japan in the next 40 years of its demographic dividend and become what it became.
And now, after 20 years stagnation, you understand that this is a European balance. But balance in 1960, balance in 2016 has its biggest flood of its history. You know that this is a journey because you can't see it in that. It's always a journey. It's a journey. You have to be a journey. You have to be therefore, what reinvent yourself in the therefore, what we are doing next month is not lecture for you, not hardware. You know, hardware is you have to carry this piece of some other place for it to pay. You don't get the software, you just do it here, you don't do it everywhere else. So, it's all because how you do things. Basically, you just need a document called making a city smart guide to capture some of the basic things which is already available on smart guide. A lot of the resources that we create, any documents that you create are freely available on smart guide. So, right, I will try to talk about the same thing. Try to take the learnings from these smart cities and these other places. This is where understand these could be possible ways, but they could only be possible ways. Your journey will be different from this one, and you have to get the basics right. You have to be connected to your people. You have to build cities around the needs of people. It's not a a lot of people come and say, well, and people are enamored by smart cities because they want to sell their products. And why not? It's a market. And cities are markets. Let the market do. But hold on, what are you saying? Are you saying that the problem the city has is not having the solution that you have? That's a wrong way to go. Most people come and you just laugh. You just think about what your problem is not having the solution. And that kills it. So, being very connected to people, understanding needs ground up, connecting our efforts to that solutioning, building livable cities, both agile, resilient cities, adaptive in nature, to be able to adapt to a COVID or anything else, and being future ready. These are all the definitions of smart cities, and therefore this is a journey. I think we have to take it to all cities in the country. So smart cities 2.0 is basically going to be across all our cities, all the 4,000 cities, where we build this journey together. And therefore, events like this are important because here we are building those partnerships, we are igniting those thoughts, igniting those ideas, which we will take forward and actually plant those in our cities, which will then grow and then also nurture similar ideas in other places. And this is how our country will write its own history, its own urban Mexican history. So at that, I will stop. I think it will be very long, but it's amazing to see everyone together after so long. I was debating whether this is right or wrong and it's trying to have a physical function, but
Thank you. No problem. We are about 10 minutes in which we need to wrap the session up. So I'll keep it brief. Thank you, Mr. Kunal Kumar. I think you touched upon the multi-layered definition of smart, which is very important in our country. From people to production to productivity. That's an important one. And I would recommend everyone in the room to download that document that the Smart City website carries. I think it's quite simple, very easy to read, and gives you a good roadmap. So please do take some time out. Let me invite Mr. Gupta now to share a few words from an NBCC perspective, from a execution and a delivery perspective, sir. You could use the same whatever you're comfortable with. Sorry, I'll just again call out. We've got 5 minutes because Mr. Kumar also has to leave, and we would want to continue with this session. I would love to do that.
I just have 5 minutes, and that suits me very well. A very good afternoon to everybody present here. This smart word for cities, that's a truly, I'll say, daunting word, because originally we used smart word for only people and probably nothing else. And then probably smartphone came, and smart city, I don't know whether smart city came earlier or smartphone came earlier. But originally definitely a smart person. And whom do you call smart? Normally we use these words, this person is very smart, and this person is not so smart, and this person is not at all smart. So whom do we call smart? And probably from that, if we derive the definition of smart city, that may be the appropriate definition. Smart person, as we call it, somebody who can get his work done very easily. Somebody who is at ease with himself and at ease with others. Generally, these are the people whom we call smart, who doesn't get stressed out very easily. So, if a city has all these qualities, in my view, that makes it a smart city. It provides happiness to its people. It provides ease of living to its people. It doesn't provide stress to its people. It provides whatever is required for living, employment, cultural activities, cleanliness, zero pollution or very little pollution. If a city connectivity, if a city provides all this, that to me is smart. So I'll say something about smart city from the angle of execution, because I'm an executor. We have been planning and executing the buildings and sometimes township.
Very welcome, sir. We're joined by Honorable Minister Shri Satyendra Jain ji.
I feel that the cities can be divided into 3 categories from the point of view of execution. One are the entirely new cities, which will be built on vacant land. And second, which will be very large chunk, will be the redeveloped cities. Because our very large number of cities cannot be converted into smart cities unless they are raised properly to the ground and rebuilt. And third will be the category with the existing cities without much modification, without total modification, can be converted into smart cities. They are good enough to be converted into smart cities. So I think it's very important to identify which city falls into which category. Can it be converted into smart city by minimum modification? Or if it is not possible, there is no point in doing the whitewash kind of work. And then again, landing into a situation where hardly anything is done. So it's better to raise everything to the ground, or raise maximum everything to the ground, and then build a city, entirely new city, which we can call a smart city. This decision is very, very important, which we should be courageous to take, because it's a difficult decision. But of late years, and we have been participating in journey. We have we cannot call it a city, but a sub-city or a small town in itself. We have already built 2 of them in Delhi, East Vijayanagar and New Moti Bagh. East Vijayanagar houses around 5,000 houses, and New Moti Bagh houses around 600-700 houses. They are mini townships in themselves with all the facilities. And we are in the process of building many of these kind of small cities or small townships for many state governments and central government. We are converting the Sarojini Nagar, Sarojini Nagar, and another 4 small colonies of CPWD by raising them to the ground and building entirely new construction. They will have all the features of smart cities. They will have zero waste. They have all water recycled, zero solid waste, and solar lighting, minimum electricity consumption, and everything as far as possible within themselves, connected to the metro, the market within working reach, this type of thing. Another challenge that will come when you raise the buildings to the ground and build new smart cities will be the C&D bit. I think though we have been working on it, and nowadays a large amount of C&D bits is being converted into reusable material, but still I think we need to do a lot about it. And one is the leveraging the technology so that almost everything can be converted into reusable material. And second is that developing a mindset that this has to be used and this has to be used at the place where it is generated, so that it doesn't add to the pollution, doesn't add to another waste at some other place. That doesn't serve anyone. So we have to, this will be a big challenge, because when you raise the building to the ground, a lot of C&D waste will be generated. So this is all I have to say from the angle of an executing agency.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gupta. I think your points around, sustainability, bringing in technology, the projects at East Kidwai Nagar, I think there are live examples of how, from an execution perspective, these challenges need to be addressed. I think as a moderator, I have a very difficult job of managing some time expectations. So I'm going to set some ground rules. We have our chief guest, Shri Satyendra Jain ji, Cabinet Minister, Government of Delhi, Health, Industries, Home, Public Works Department, Power, Urban Development and Transport. And I feel great to say that he's also an architect in his early days and has worked with CPWD. So I will invite him for his keynote chief guest address. Sir, onto the stage, please. And I know, Mr. Kumar, if you have to... so maybe we can request the organizers to get a quick picture for the entire panel. And then, yeah, that could be the order of the day.
आज ये स्मार्ट सिटीज़ के लिए एग्जीबिशन स्टार्ट हो रही है, उसके लिए मैं ऑर्गेनाइजेशन को बधाई देता हूँ। स्मार्ट सिटीज़ जो बनाने की भावना है, मुझे लगता है इसके स्मार्ट एंड सस्टेनेबल दोनों साथ साथ होनी चाहिए। हो क्या रहा है कि हम लोग स्मार्ट को अलग कर देते हैं, सस्टेनेबल को अलग कर देते हैं और कहते हैं भी स्मार्ट बना लो। स्मार्ट तो आप एग्जिस्टिंग को बना से, अभी गुप्ता जी कह रहे थे कि भी कई सारी बिल्डिंगों को तोड़ना पड़ेगा, बिल्कुल ठीक है। होता क्या है कि बार बार रिपेयर करते रहिए, बार बार रिपेयर करते रहिएगा, उसके बाद भी वो चीज़ बनती नहीं है कि जो आप चाहते हैं। तो उससे बेटर है कि एक बार तोड़ के दोबारा बना लो, पर अच्छी तरह से बना लीजिएगा। और साथ ही साथ जो बड़े सिटीज़ की प्रॉब्लम्स हैं, वो बहुत बड़ी बड़ी प्रॉब्लम्स होती जा रही हैं। सबसे पहली प्रॉब्लम तो प्लानिंग की प्रॉब्लम आ रही है। आज जैसे हम मास्टर प्लान्स बनाते हैं, मास्टर प्लान के अंदर कहते हैं रेजिडेंशियल यहाँ पर होगा, ऑफिस यहाँ पर होगा, आईटी सेक्टर यहाँ पर होगा, हर चीज़ के लिए हमने बिल्कुल रिजिड साइलोज बना दिए। दुनिया में आज ऐसा कहीं नहीं चल रहा है जो दिल्ली के अंदर, इस देश के अंदर चल रहा है। अगर आपने 3 बेडरूम हाउस बनाया और उसमें एक कमरे को आप ऑफिस यूज़ करना चाहते हैं तो करिए, उसमें दिक्कत क्या है? व्हाट इज़ द प्रॉब्लम? आज इतना आईटी का, कंप्यूटर का इतना रिवोल्यूशन आ चुका है, वर्क फ्रॉम होम स्टार्ट हो गया, तो वर्क फ्रॉम होम के साथ साथ अगर 2 लोग और भी काम कर लें आपके साथ तो उसको अलाउ होना चाहिए। और ये बहुत ज़्यादा जोनिंग के जो रेस्ट्रिक्टेड एरियाज़ हैं उनको ठीक करने की ज़रूरत है। मुझे लगता है कि हमारे को नेगेटिव लिस्ट बनानी चाहिए सिर्फ कि ये चीज़ें अलाउड नहीं होगी। जैसे सरोजनी नगर की बात कर रहे थे, अब वो कहते 5000 घर बनाए, आप कहे हमने 5000 घर बनाए, उसमें और कुछ भी करिएगा एक्सेप्ट दीज 3 थिंग्स, बाकी कुछ भी कर लो आप, उसमें क्या फ़र्क पड़ता है? और रियली स्मार्ट होने के लिए सस्टेनेबल होना भी बहुत ज़रूरी है। जैसे पानी देखिएगा, सबसे बड़ी समस्या अब आने वाले टाइम में पानी की आने वाली है। बिजली की समस्या तो शायद हम ठीक कर लेंगे, सोलर पावर आ रही है, सब कुछ आ रहा है, बट पानी के साथ दिक्कत क्या हो रही है? पानी ना, मतलब उसकी लिमिटेड क्वांटिटी हमारी डिज़ायर बढ़ती जा रही है, तो पानी को हमें कैसे रिसाइकिल करना है वो बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट होता है। आज हम जल्द से जल्द, बारिश का पानी होता है कि जल्दी से जल्दी उसको नदियों में डाल के समुद्र में बचाने की जल्दी होती है, सारा नालों के अंदर जाना चाहिए, 1 मिनट भी पानी रुकना नहीं चाहिए कहीं भी। और सिटीज़ के अंदर मैक्सिमम एरिया को हम ग्राउंड कवरेज करते जा रहे हैं। मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि किसी भी सिटी के लिए ग्रीन लंग स्पेसेस बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, बहुत ज़रूरी है। जैसे दिल्ली शहर की मैं बात करता हूँ, हमारे को मल्टी लेवल बिल्डिंग्स पे स्ट्रेस देना चाहिए और ग्राउंड कवरेज कम से कम होनी चाहिए। ग्राउंड कवरेज जितनी कम होगी उतना अच्छा है। आज दिल्ली का टोटल प्लॉट एरिया जो है, लैंड एरिया है, 1500 स्क्वायर किलोमीटर है, और 1500 स्क्वायर किलोमीटर में जिस तरह से हम बढ़ते जा रहे हैं, उस तरह से दिल्ली के अंदर कोई भी जगह हम ओपन स्पेस छोड़ने वाले नहीं हैं। आपने 2 एग्जांपल दिए कि दिल्ली में 2 स्मार्ट सिटी बने, दिल्ली में 2 सिटी और भी बने हैं पीछे, एक रोहिणी बना और एक द्वारका बना। रोहिणी को मैं कहता हूँ प्लान्ड स्लम है, जो कि प्लानिंग करके उसको स्लम से भी बुरा बनाया गया है। और आप देखिएगा, इस देश की आज़ादी के बाद एक चंडीगढ़ बना था और एक रोहिणी बना। रोहिणी बना है कि सड़कों का जो एरिया है, वो लैंड जो आपका प्लॉट एरिया, बिल्टअप एरिया है, सड़कों का एरिया लगभग 50% ऑफ दैट है। दुनिया के अंदर कोई भी शहर ऐसा नहीं है जिसके अंदर सड़कों का एरिया दिल्ली जितना हो। सभी सिटीज़ में 10%, 12%, इससे ज़्यादा लैंड रोड एरिया नहीं होता है। दिल्ली के अंदर बहुत ज़्यादा रोड स्पेस जा रहा है, उसके बावजूद भी कंजेशन है, बहुत ज़्यादा कंजेशन है। हमारे को फंडामेंटली सोचने की ज़रूरत है। और मुझे लगता है प्लानिंग जो प्रोसेस है उसके अंदर सिर्फ कुछ गवर्नमेंट ऑफिसर्स मिलके उसको बना लें, जैसे डीडीए करता है, उसकी ज़रूरत नहीं। जनता को उसके अंदर इन्वॉल्व करने की ज़रूरत है और हमें फॉरवर्ड लुकिंग पॉलिसीज़ को देखने की ज़रूरत है। आज हुआ क्या, एक बार चलाया कि दिल्ली से बाहर ऑफिस बनाएंगे, तो दिल्ली के ऑफिस बंद करके गुड़गांव में खोल दिए। क्यों खोले? कि दिल्ली सुबह सुबह लोग आया करते थे, भीड़ होती थी। आज दिल्ली गुड़गांव बॉर्डर पे जाइएगा, 3 लाख कारें दिल्ली से बाहर जाती हैं, भीड़ तो फिर बढ़ गई। तो मतलब ये कोई सॉल्यूशन नहीं हुआ कि हम चाहें कि पहले हम एक प्रॉब्लम का दूसरा सॉल्यूशन। भाई आज की डेट में सॉल्यूशंस को हमें होलिस्टिकली देखना पड़ेगा और होलिस्टिकली देख के उसको होलिस्टिकली उसका सॉल्व करना पड़ेगा। मेरा एक चीज़ और मानना है, जो चीज़ स्मार्ट होगी वो एफिशिएंट भी होगी और अच्छी भी होगी, सस्ती भी होगी, ये ध्यान रखना। अगर वो महंगी है, बल्कि है, तो इसका मतलब ख़राब है, स्मार्ट हो ही नहीं सकती। स्मार्ट मीन्स मोस्ट एफिशिएंट एंड मोस्ट कॉस्ट इफेक्टिव, दोनों चीज़ें साथ साथ होगी तभी होगा। तो हमें लेकर चलना पड़ेगा, जितने भी स्मार्ट सॉल्यूशंस हैं उनको सिटी लेवल स्केल के ऊपर सोचना पड़ेगा। उसके अंदर ट्रांसपोर्टेशन भी उसका एक पार्ट है। जैसे ट्रांसपोर्टेशन है, आज दिल्ली शहर के अंदर हर आदमी पर्सनल ट्रांसपोर्ट सिस्टम यूज़ करना चाहता है। आप यूरोप में देखिएगा और दिल्ली में देखिएगा, यूरोप के अंदर अमीर लोग पब्लिक ट्रांसपोर्ट यूज़ करते हैं, दिल्ली के अंदर गरीब लोग प्राइवेट व्हीकल यूज़ करते हैं। ज़्यादातर लोगों को लगता है कि मैं अगर अपनी कार में चलूँगा, किराए वो मतलब लोन पे लेके कार में चलूँगा, तो उसको लगता है कि आई एम स्मार्ट। पर मुझे लगता है वो स्मार्ट नहीं, स्मार्ट सिटी उसको कहेंगे जिसके अंदर ज़्यादातर लोग पब्लिक ट्रांसपोर्ट सिस्टम को यूज़ कर सकें। अगर हम टोटल सिस्टम को स्मार्ट बनाने की कोशिश करेंगे, और पॉसिबिलिटीज़ हैं, सॉल्यूशंस हैं, उसके ऊपर हमें चलने की ज़रूरत है। और मुझे लगता है कि ये एग्जीबिशन जो आप लगा रहे हैं, लोगों को आइडियाज़ मिलेंगे, नई टेक्नोलॉजी को देखने का मौका मिलेगा। अब तो आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस, मशीन लर्निंग सब चीज़ें आ रही हैं, उसका यूज़ कर पाएंगे और नई से नई टेक्नोलॉजी, नई से नई चीज़ों को लोग आपस में इंटरेक्ट करेंगे और मुझे लगता है कि इसको आगे बढ़ाने में मदद मिलेगी। धन्यवाद। जय हिंद, जय भारत।
Thank you so much, Mr. Jain. I think as for a final vote of thanks, as we've run out of time, I will request Mr. Agarwal, ED ITPO, to share his vote of thanks, and that will be the concluding remarks for the session, please. Mr. Agarwal.
Thank you, Puneet. A very good afternoon to all of you. First of all, I take this opportunity on behalf of India Trade Promotion Organization to welcome the Honorable Minister and all the dignitaries on the dais, those present in the hall, all the participants, everybody who has been a stakeholder in this expo today, to this new facility of India Trade Promotion Organization. We are trying to create an international exhibition convention complex at Pragati Maidan, and the entire Pragati Maidan, which has got a legacy beyond 50 years, is now being completely redeveloped into a modern facility for global conferences, global exhibitions, which will be at par with best in the world. Because the talk is around smart cities, building new cities, I'll just like to say two small observations. To me, building smart city or doing anything smart, from governance point of view, it has to be people-centric development. If you want to build a smart city, it has to be a people-centric planning. Whatever you plan for a city, you have to keep people first. If you do that, whatever we get final outcome will fall more in line with the smart city. Here at ITPO also, we believe in the mantra of our Honorable Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi ji, who said that governance should be to promote ease of living. How do we promote ease of living? ITPO in its own way, because we run one of the biggest exhibition conference area in this country, we have tried that when we are doing redevelopment of Pragati Maidan, the facility that we build is built around the aspirations of all the stakeholders who come here. How do we ensure that every visitor who come to an exhibition or a conference here do have a seamless interface with the exhibition grounds? How do we ensure that every exhibitor who comes gets good facilities and he is proud of those facilities, he can showcase his business or his ideas in a very seamless manner? We have even gone to the extent of thinking, how do we ensure a proper hygienic environment for our labor, hundreds of labor who toil for days together and days and night together before putting up these exhibitions like this? How do we ensure that we have got the right set of washrooms for them? How do we ensure that they can go out to the right eating places? We have tried to think our ICC in that way, where we try to see that from labor to logistic provider to an exhibitor to a visitor to a third party organizer, the aspirations of each one of them are met to its entirety. The exhibition today also, one of the things that we look forward to, because we are in the process of completing this complex, and this part of the complex is going to get over in next month or so. We look forward to feedback from each one of you who visit this expo today, because we understand your feedback on the facilities here and what you felt was right and what you felt was not right would help us finish the entire ecosystem, entire project in a manner that you will be proud of these facilities as an Indian. That's the aspiration that we want to achieve. And as an ITPO, we are completely committed to living the vision of our Honorable Prime Minister to make ease of living, ease of doing business at Pragati Maidan for all of you. With these words, I welcome the Honorable Minister and all the people on the dais. I thank them for being here today and giving their guidance to this expo. I understand this is the 6th edition of the Smart City Expo and maybe 28th edition of Convergence India Expo. This has played a leading role in building partnerships over last 28 years and seeing that technology can actually become the driver for nation building and driver for economic growth in the country. I see that in these difficult times, the organizers, ITPO along with the organizers, Exhibition India, which has been our long-standing partners, have been able to put up a decent show, and we as together would like to keep contributing to the nation building by providing these platforms to the industry and everybody who wants to benefit out of it. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Before we close this session, I would like to request our director, Mr. Dhruv Bahl, who is from Exhibitions India Group, to give a memento to our esteemed chief guest, Shri Satyendra Jain, Minister for Health and Family Welfare, and all other ministries under him. Thank you, sir. May I request Mr. Dhruv Bahl to give a memento to Shri P.K. Gupta, who is CMD, NBCC. Mr. Rajesh Agarwal, who is Executive Director, ITPO. And last but not the least, to Mr. Puneet Narang, partner, KPMG, who has done a fantastic job at moderating the whole event. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We take a break now. We reassemble here at 2 o'clock for the sessions. Now, this hall will become the excuse me, before that we have esteemed guests on the stage to cut the ribbon. May I request the minister and all the other dignitaries on the dais to assist him in cutting the ribbon, please? Oh. Thank you. We have a break now. We reassemble back in this very hall at 2 o'clock, but the smart cities will be shifted to Hall B, which is right at the end, and convergence. The 5G event will be in this Hall A. This is Hall A, and that at the right end, extreme left, is Hall B, where smart cities will shift. Thank you.